Let us begin with Angie's murder. We have found many clues in the Ultimate Artist Lab where she died. The Necronomicon, the hanging wax effigies, the gold katana, the duct tape, etc. But the clues in the lab alone aren't enough to truly lead us to the culprit, from what I noticed. Angie's murder was truly a mystery after searching the lab thoroughly. There are, however, two pieces of evidence that made me go, aha! That's it! When it comes to Angie's murder case. And funny enough, they were at Tenko's murder scene. The pieces of evidence that I'm talking about are the floorboard with the dry blood on it, and the dry pool of blood under the same floorboard. One thing is for sure, if it weren't for the seance and Tenko's murder, I doubt that we would have been able to figure out how Angie truly died without these very important pieces of evidence. Could it be that Lady Luck is on our side? Or is there more to it? Well, let us think about it for a second. What does this mean exactly? It means that someone used the floorboard to hit Angie in the forehead, reason why she has the laceration, and that the floorboard has her blood, which is dry at this point. Also, the dry pool of blood under the floorboard tells us that Angie got hit right there in the middle room. The only possibility I can think of is that the culprit took the floorboard at some point, hit Angie in the head, and the blood from her forehead leaks into the hole in the middle room that the culprit made after removing said floorboard. But hold on a second, does this mean that the Monokuma file lied to us? It said it was a stab in the neck, not hit in the forehead with a big object, that killed her. Well, that can mean that it wasn't the hit with the floorboard that killed her. I mean, it wasn't instant death. She was still alive apparently after getting hit. Which leads to the piece of evidence we found in her lab, and that is the bloody duct tape. From what I can think of, the culprit had the idea of duct taping the wound on her forehead and bring her body to the lab without having traces of blood following them on the way, reason why we found hair on the duct tape out of all things. Afterwards, the killer used the katana to finally kill her and create a locked room murder scenario for us to never figure out the murder. The culprit wanted us to think the first attack was in her lab, when in actuality it was in the middle empty room. Now, you probably have a couple of questions about this. The first question would be, well, do you know how the culprit created the locked room murder scenario? Well, I'm gonna be quite honest here, that is still a mystery to me, as of now, and I cannot quite figure it out yet. One thing I can say is that the culprit did something with one of the doors in order to lock them while they were outside. And I can assume that it has to do with the back door, what with the shiny stuff on the lock, the unexplained reasoning behind hanging the wax effigies, the gold katana placement. It still bugs me for now, I don't know. And the second question you may have is, well, okay, does that mean that now you know who the killer is? Cause based on just that, it still doesn't lead to anyone specific. Like, anyone could have done it. Well, in order to answer that, I think it would be time to think about Tenko's murder case now. This one is a bit of an interesting one, because in my eyes, it seems like Tenko's case is connected to Angie's case, even though it looks like there is no connection between them. There is no denying that the murder weapon which was used to kill Tenko was the bloody sickle we found under the floorboard, given that it had her fresh blood on it. Question is, how did Tenko's culprit use the bloody sickle to kill her? I mean, it was dark, and Tenko was under a cage with a white sheath and a heavy dog statue above it. There is no way for the culprit to have used the sickle from outside the cage when they had to remove the dog statue first. Not to mention that the cage and the white sheaf tell us that Tenko died in the same turtle position, and that the cage and the white cloth were not removed while she got killed. Meaning, the bloody sickle must have been right above Tenko, like all along when she got killed. But how? I mean, we saw the cage. There was nothing suspicious like a sickle on top to have killed her. I mean, if there were, we would have seen it by now. Unless it was hidden by the sheaf. Now, who was the person that put the sheaf on top of the cage? It was Kyo. It can be possible that Kyo put the sickle on the cage, which can fit through the holes easily, hide it under the sheaf so that no one can see it, and have Tenko be murdered without her realizing that she had a sickle on top of her all the time. I mean, she was told to stay in the exact same position all the time throughout the seance, so she couldn't have known. And not to mention that it was too dark for her to see anything through that. So, to put it bluntly, I think Kyo was the one responsible for killing Tenko. Or, at least, not the only one, for now. This does raise some problems though, when I'm thinking about it, and it is something I addressed during the investigation. I did say that there is like an inconsistency here when it comes to my theory. The sickle can fit through the cage, yeah, but just like Maki asked, is it long enough to reach Tenko's neck? Doesn't seem like it, meaning that there is still the question of Tenko's posture during the seance. However, like I said before, it can't be she changed her posture, otherwise there wouldn't be blood on the top of the cage and the white sheaf. I mean, it would have been elsewhere if she changed her posture. But if it wasn't the posture that isn't the problem, then maybe I'm thinking wrong when it comes to the placement of the sickle? Or maybe neither of the two are wrong, and they are both correct. But how? Well, let's go back to the floorboard we talked about before. I mean, besides the dry blood, we also found out that the crosspiece that was holding the floorboard was cut. It was done intentionally by someone. And not only that, but other crosspieces were also cut in the other empty rooms too, given what Kokichi said. Whoever it was that cut the crosspieces must have done it for a reason. But for what exactly? It can be that this was also part of the murder, because the floorboard that Tenko was standing on was also supported by the section of the crosspiece that was cut. It can be that the floorboard and that loud noise we heard during the seance has something to do with Tenko's murder. Therefore, I have a couple of possibilities for this. One would be that because of the cut in the crosspiece, it can be that somebody under the floorboard managed to push the side that Tenko was on and have it so she gets hit with the sickle. Thus, Tenko and the sickle were both in the same position when the murder happened. This can mean that somebody was under the floorboards and was waiting to push. But that begs the question, is it possible though? I mean, let's not forget that we heard a loud noise, which without a doubt came from the cage, the statue and the floorboard, meaning that you would have to exert like quite a lot of power in order for the statue and the cage to make a lot of noise. Would somebody have such a huge strength to push the floorboard up? My guess would be that the only one who would be able to do this is Gonta. So, can it be that Gonta and Kyo were in cahoots to try and kill Tenko? And the second possibility that I was thinking of is, instead of pushing up the side of the floorboard Tenko was on, maybe somebody pushed the other side of the floorboard down. I mean, without the crosspiece section, it can be easy for someone to jump on that side and make it so that the side Tenko was on rised up and hit the sickle and make a huge noise in the process. Meaning, someone inside the middle room could have done it, and my safest guess would be Kyo. Alright, so now thinking back on both of the possibilities that I mentioned, which one do I believe in the most? Well, there isn't really anything else that make me think that Gonta was the one responsible. Whereas, with the second possibility, it can't be Kyo alone, since he wanted to do the seance so badly. Not to mention that no matter what room we picked, it would have been the same since every room had cut crosspieces. I mean, can it really be a coincidence that the same floorboard that Tenko was on also had a cut crosspiece? No, I believe it was part of the murder plan. I cannot think of any other reason the crosspieces were cut to begin with. In all the rooms, no less. I do have to wonder how many times it said the word floorboard in this. More than enough to make me get sick of floorboards for the rest of my life. Wait, hold on a second. There can be a different possibility here. Fuck everything I said. This is much more serious. Hey, what? The third secret possibility that you could easily miss. The floorboard moved by itself! The floorboard was the killer all along! It killed Tenko and hit Angie and moved her body to the lab, and then finally killed her. Oh my god! But what if he was Himiko? Oh, fuck you.